Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the office. I thought I had started the live stream, but then I realized I hadn't actually hit the button. So here I am. All right. Welcome. Today, we are continuing what has ended up being a very long series on the rules encyclopedia, but I think it's been worth it. There are still a couple of topics that I want to go over because I want to look at all the Game Master information in there and see what was actually saying the Game Master should do. But then also it was recommended by everyone in the chat that we also take a look at the Immortals section and figure out what that was all about when it sounds like you're fighting and then becoming immortals. So there's still a bit more to go here. So we were going to go work on this today, and then also we'll see what maybe today and tomorrow we will see how this goes. I have not seen any interesting news here lately, as far as, it is just Monday morning. As far as things going on, I did notice that Blood and Doom, which we looked at and then had the creators on the show, that Kickstarter did finish, and of course it did fund. So now it is off. It is off to do whatever it is doing and creating all of its products and getting out there. So that one was successful, and that one is complete. So that's great. Tomorrow night, we are having a table talk, and I've got to create the thumbnail for that. Both Brianna and Doug will be here because we are going to be discussing Sleeping Beauty and Maleficent. So I rewatched Sleeping Beauty last night, and I took all kinds of notes here for Sleeping Beauty. And then also we'll be simultaneously or discussing it on the same stream anyway, Maleficent. And so I started watching Maleficent and taking some notes on that as well. So I'm fresh and caught up. That will be tomorrow night. So who do we have here this morning? Let's see. We've got James. James, good morning, James. And Mike is here. Good morning. Zero Theory and Zero the Blade. Good morning. Oh, and Andrew. Good morning, Andrew. So good to see everybody this morning. It's pretty cool here. Let's sip here. Pretty cool here this morning. So I'm enjoying the weather here in Alabama before it gets really hot. Also cut grass yesterday before I have to do it in 90-degree weather. All right, let's everybody got your favorite drink with you this morning? Let's pull out our favorite drink. Let's do a breathe. Let's do a breathe and sip, and then we will move on to the rules encyclopedia. So here we go. Got it ready? Let's go. 2 deep inhales, full exhales, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage. All right, there we go. Let me bring up the Cyclopedia. All right, so like I was saying, we were taking a look at the different topics that we still had left that were also interesting to us. So we had just gone through strongholds and domains. And you know what? I was thinking this morning, more about how do you run something like that? And of course, I still think these rules are a bit cumbersome, but the Kingmaker I have not looked at. That's something from Pathfinder, but I was wondering if that's something that I was able to get through the Humble Bundle or not, but it doesn't look like I did. So that's why I must not recognize it. Okay, so what have we got here? We had just gone through strongholds and dominions and had a great time with that. So I wanted to look at Dungeon Master procedures, although there's also a section over here on campaigning, like designing a game and adapting the game to a setting, which I guess I was kind of thinking was part of being a Dungeon Master. But I think we should look at both of those sections. And then down here is Immortals. So that's what I think we're going to look at the rest of this in this book. There's still more Planes of Existence. We looked at some Planescape stuff. So we do have Planes of Existence here and Treasure and stuff like that. But I think we might not necessarily need to go over that. So let's go to Dungeon Master procedures. Zero Theory says, there might be some hidden gems in the DM section. That's what I'm thinking. Falcon Forge Fantasy. It's all in the grind. That's right. Can't be too fine. Can't be too coarse. Okay, Dungeon Master procedures. Now, we do have ability checks here. It says, during the play of the game, a player will eventually try something not explained in these rules. Hard to believe, right? In most cases, the character's actions could pertain to one of his ability scores. A character trying to walk on the top of their very, very narrow wall, is using dexterity. A character trying to move the huge boulder blocking the corridor is using his strength. In such situations, the character rolls 1d20 against his pertinent ability score. If he rolls equal to or less than the score, he has successfully performed the task. If he rolls greater than the score, he has failed. When the task looks exceptionally easy or difficult, the DM can modify the attempt by adding a bonus or penalty to this number the player rolls on the d20. This whole process is called an ability check. Also see the section on general skills, which we did look at, which provides alternative ways to resolve special situations. So I think it's interesting that ability checks, they are here, but they aren't that big a deal. Because this is before we're talking about unified action resolution systems and things like that. So this is before all of that. So an ability check is here, but it's kind of designed here as a catch-all for everything that anytime a player may try to do something that isn't already in the rules, because everything has its own kind of idiosyncratic way of resolving whatever action it was talking about. But then as a catch-all, you can send somebody to an ability check, or the general skills that was a variant rule or an alternative rule, an option. That's what I'm looking for. An optional rule for general skills. So it is here, but it's not that big a deal. Okay, aging. In the D&D world, disease, blindness, and other afflictions can be easily cured by clerical spells. Furthermore, the Raise Dead and Raise Dead Fully spells seem to bestow near immortality, but this isn't quite true. Character aging should be carefully restricted. Should be a carefully restricted element of the game. So here again, I suppose this is where Sable Phoenix will be talking about. You have got to keep accurate time records. You've got to be keeping accurate time records because you're going to be aging here. Character aging should be a carefully restricted element of the game. When a character reaches the end of a long natural lifespan, magical means of prolonging or restoring life should have little or no effect. A raise spell should only restore the character for a brief time, 1d10 days, or whatever the GM chooses. The following ages are recommended as the maximum for character races. Human, 100, 95 plus 2d12. Halfling, 200, 190 plus 2d20. Halfling, dwarf, 400, 375 plus D100, and elf 800, 750 plus 2D100. A potion of longevity does remove 10 years of aging, but the DM may apply restrictions as desired. For example, the potion may only affect unnatural aging, such as that caused by haunts, or each living creature might only be able to drink 5 such potions in a lifetime, all further uses having no effect, or each such use might have a single chance of creating a reverse effect, aging the character 10 years. A wish should be the only magic capable of extending a character's life to a great degree. As a guideline, it should have a maximum effect equal to that of a potion of longevity, but without restrictions. Some characters will avoid that fate of aging by undertaking the path to immortality, which we're going to take a look at, and succeeding on that quest. Other characters who have lived long, exciting, and fruitful lives will probably accept the final test brought by death, particularly if their players are anxious to get on with new, vital characters. Alignment changing. Sometimes a player forgets or ignores the alignment of his character and plays the adventure incorrectly. Oh, you played the adventurer incorrectly. You should talk privately with the player about the problem and encourage the proper play of alignment. Never do this during a game. Deal with the problem in private. If the problem continues, so this is a problem you can do. If the problem continues after you have warned the player more than once, you may tell the player to change the alignment of the character to the alignment actually being played. You may also assess a penalty against the character at this time, such as the loss of 1 level of experience. Remember, too, that you have not changed the character's alignment. The player has by playing his character as a different alignment. Some players will change their character's alignment for appropriate reasons. If the character is affected by a helm of alignment changing or other cursed treasure that affects alignment, then obviously the player has no choice. Generally, the original alignment will return after a period of time after the helm curse is removed. Also, events of the life of the character may force the player to reevaluate the character's personality and play him differently. So long as he plays the new alignment well and consistently, there should be no problem. If you penalize alignment changes, you should also reward good alignment play by rewarding more experience and treasure. It does seem like alignment is going away. I was noticing, because they talked about that in the Pathfinder 2E. And this is part of the stuff that doesn't bother me. Like, instead of like, oh, now how are you going to know if you don't have alignment in a world where good and evil are actually objective things? We talked about that when we went over the Book of Vile Darkness. And you remove alignment, isn't that actually going to have mechanical effects on magic items, spells, and things like that in the game? And it seems like yes, but it seems like an easy way to get around that is to do what they're doing in Pathfinder 2E now and just tagging certain creatures as evil or whatever they actually are. So if you're trying to detect evil or you've got some type of weapon that inflicts more damage on evil creatures or something like that, then you've got these tags that take care of that for you, which I think is pretty reasonable. I don't in most of the games that I had even been writing or whatever, alignment really wasn't used anyway. So that doesn't seem bad to me. And also, I believe I read the same thing in Kobold Press. I was like, okay, so they're actually going in about the same direction, because I do have the third the third playtest packet from Kobold Press for Black Flag, or what is now Tales of the Valiant. And I believe that I was reading in that alignment is going. In fact, let me confirm that if I can find that. The download. Whoa. Mike says, I think they're called a lich. Let's see. Well, yeah, but alignment could be a public perception, have consequences if you run around being evil versus good. Well, sure. Oh, here's playtest packet 3. Let me just see if I can search for the word alignment and confirm that I'm saying that right. Well, Well, never mind. I don't immediately see that. We'll take a look at this third playtest packet at some time. Oh no. Here's why. Okay, let me just show you what's going on here, or why I thought that. Let me take this down. So this is what made me think this. I just briefly looked at this, like scrolled by it. I don't think there's a whole lot for us to look at in general in here. We'll look at it on one day. Maybe it can be with something else within the next couple of weeks. But I noticed right here that we've got tags as well. This is in the Kobold Press Playtest Packet 3. Tags. Monsters may have various tags that further specify their creature type. If a monster has a tag, it appears as part of their stat block in parentheses after size and type. Tags indicate creatures that can be targeted by specific spells, magic items, and other features available to PCs. Core tags are angel, animal, animated, chaotic, a creature bound to the forces of chaos. They can be specifically targeted by spells and abilities of law. Corrupt, demon, devil, evil, a creature bound to the forces of evil. They can be damaged by spells of good. Goblinoid, good, a creature bound to the forces of good. They can be damaged by spells of evil. Lawful, a creature bound to the forces of law. They can be specifically targeted by spells or abilities of chaos. Outsider, shadow, a creature native to the shadow realm. Shape changer. Okay, so here's animated armor. Where do we see tags? So I guess over here. So there was animated right there. Bugbear, goblinoid. So there isn't any, when I'm looking at the stat block for Bugbear. Right? Oh, I didn't bring this up last. So like, for instance, I didn't put it on the screen. James says, I actually quite like alignment. The problem isn't with the system. It's misunderstanding the system. Zero Theory says, I think someone mentioned it before, that the ideas of vices and virtues are good ideas. Yeah, so here's the stat block for Goblin, or for Bugbear. So now this is Kobold Press, medium humanoid goblinoid. So that one doesn't even say evil or anything like that. Armor, we got armor class, hit point, speed, stealth, sense, perception, CR, PB, whatever PB is at the moment. Brutal, surprise attack, and then actions, and that's it. Then we go on to Bugbear Champion. So Demon Husk, well, it says it's a demon, but this isn't tagged by like evil or something like that. Young Black Dragon is tagged evil. So we'll take a look at that. So it seems like tagging different alignment is something that a lot of people stumble upon the same kind of thing at the same kind of time. So it seems like both Kobold Press and Pathfinder are kind of going in those directions. James says, I agree with you that the early alignment system is too bare bones to really work. Nuance is essential. Oh, Micah says, yes, please, everybody, please do hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for the reminder, Micah. Please do hit the buttons. Oh, yesterday I was also thinking more about our situation. We were talking about titles here. We need to return to that topic because I found some other examples that I think are pertinent to our discussion. Lost my place. Hang on. Okay, anti-magic effects. Magic can sometimes be weakened or altered so that it's canceled or only partially functions. This phenomenon is called anti-magic, AM. Anti-magic is stated as a percentage chance that magic will not work in a given area. The first encounter with anti-magic for most PCs occurs when they confront a beholder whose central eye projects an anti-magic ray. This ray's anti-magic value is 100%. Magic will not work within this ray. Some very rare creatures, notably immortals, possess partial or total anti-magic. Why anti-magic exists? Anti-magic exists or results from differences between life forms native to different planes of existence. Magic native to the inner planes of existence, the prime, ethereal, and elemental planes, function best when used on creatures and things native to those planes. Creatures from other planes are not made the same way. All creatures native to the inner planes are made of components of the four spheres of power, matter, energy, time, and thought, and are affected by the sphere of entropy. But creatures of the astral or outer planes lack one or more of the four components and may avoid most of the effects of entropy as well. Detailed examples of anti-magic. So, for example, an immortal comes with the anti-magic range of a potion of flying. The immortal comes within an anti-magic range of a potion of flying. The potion is deactivated by random roll and becomes non-magically flavored water. If consumed during this time, the water has no effect and all benefits are lost forever. If not consumed, the liquid again becomes a standard potion of flying one turn after the immortal departs. And James says, and any single member of any race, regardless of cultural norms, can deviate. There are fallen angels, there are lawful good drow. So this is a wizard fighting a beholder with an anti-magic ray. I kind of like that picture. Arguments and complaints. If an argument starts during a game, stop the game for a moment, listen to both sides, and make a decision. Then continue the game as soon as possible. Do not allow an argument to continue for long. Explain that everyone is trying to have fun and that the argument can be settled after the game if necessary. If a player complains about the way you are handling something in game, try to listen to the objection. Be reasonable. He may be right. If you can fix the problem by changing a procedure, try to work out a reasonable compromise. For example, if a player says you keep killing characters with poison, you might try to reduce the number of poison traps and monsters you have in your game. Be careful not to change rules that could overbalance the game in favor of the characters. The game system is carefully balanced to provide fun for all while challenging the characters. Some complaints may be caused by players' greed. It should not be easy to get treasure experience. Those things should be earned slowly using the guidelines given. Beware of the giveaway, aka Monty Hall game. Your players may quickly become bored with easy riches, and their characters will easily overpower most monsters. If you're not sure how to handle a situation, tell it to the players. Everyone has to learn and learn the game. Like this can be a slow process. The players will understand if you explain that you made a mistake, and they might have a sound and fair recommendation for ways you can handle the situation. When you admit your mistakes and try to correct them, you and your players will have a better game in the long run. Information on charm person spells. Okay, this says climbing. It says thieves and only thieves have the special ability to climb sheer surfaces. However, any characters can try to climb more ordinary surfaces. Okay, so I was wondering about that. So this is another one of those kind of, we got climbing. We don't have general climbing rules. We got the thief climbing rules, and now here is our ordinary climbing rules. Any character can try to climb more ordinary surfaces, a tree, a steep hill, a wall with easy handholds, etc. So if we're doing that, we don't have to rely on the thieves' climbing ability. But the thief climbing things that other people cannot climb is important. And the thief, that was one of the abilities the thief could actually do rather well. Generally, any characters in metal armor will not be able to climb well. Characters in leather or no armor should be able to climb easily with only a slight chance of falling. In situations where normal climbing might be attempted, first decide on a base chance of success. For example, if characters seek to spend the night in a tree with many overhanging branches, there might be an 18 or in 20 chance of successful climbing by unarmored characters. Those in metal armor, such as chainmail, might find their chances slimmer, 11 and 20, in climbing to the top. Dexterity checks may allow an easy way for a character to check chances of PCs falling from their perches. Whatever chances you decide to use, make a note of them so they may be applied in future games. Remember this, a falling character takes D6 points of damage for each 10 feet fallen. Yeah, I know. It's actually been a little while since I've heard Monty Hall game. Me too. Or at least, especially read it. Zero Theory also says, remember Munchkins or Munchkin-y characters? I don't hear that one anymore either. Well, Munchkin was that was adopted by Steve Jackson Games, right? For their game, which I think I have played once, like the Munchkin card game, but I don't really remember it. James says, I firmly believe in the adversarial relationship between the party and the DM. When there are always more members in the party, so the DM is using poison is fair and expected. He's got to thin them out. Clues. Let's see. Creating characters. When a newly created character has all low scores, all scores under 9, the player should be allowed to discard it. You should allow beginning players to use characters they like. It's hard to have fun playing when you are forced to use a poor character with no score above 9 or 2 scores below 6. Such characters should be discarded. On the other hand, a player might want to play this character. If he does, let him. If a character wants a certain class of character but rolls abilities that strongly favor another class, you may allow him to switch the ability scores around. Just switch the highest score rolled for the character to the prime requisite ability appropriate for the class and the player wants. Well, that's awfully nice. I forget exactly how, of course, we were rolling 3d6, but there was something about swapping something. Oh, no. There was, you could change things, but it was like a 2-to-1, right? Like a 2-to-1 level. It wasn't just, it wasn't 1-for-1. Like you had to subtract 2 points of an ability score to add 1 to another one. But here with the creating characters, okay, there's an optional rule that is a bit more forgiving. Damage to magical items. Any item may be damaged by rough treatment. Armor and weapons, however, are made to withstand a great amount of punishment. A DM should decide whether an item might be damaged based on the item and the type of attack that would make an item damage roll. Some breath weapons should require such checks. Long falls should require such checks, 100 feet or more. Pools of acid, rock slide, and other extreme danger should require checks for items carried. To check for damage to items, roll 1d4 or 1d6, using 1d6 if the chance of damage is high. If the result is greater than the item's strength, number of pluses, the item is damaged. Items without pluses may be given ratings for this purpose. So I guess if you've got a +2 2 sword, then you need to roll a d4. And if the result is greater than the strength number, then the item is damaged. Any potions or scrolls are a +1 item. Any wand or staff is a +2 item. So potions and scrolls are easy to break. Almost automatic. No, because you got to roll above that number. So 25% chance is fine. This is another one of the kind of arbitrary ways to resolve things. Dexterity adjustments should be applied to the rolls. If a character tries to break something, strength adjustments could be applied. No adjustment should be greater than +2. However, adjustments to the chance of survival can be any number of subtractions for the roll. A potion bottle dropped from a tabletop might require a check for breakage, but with a -2 adjustment. Thus, only a roll of 4 indicates breakage. If an item is damaged, it may either be partially damaged or completely destroyed. For items with magical bonuses, 1 or more points may be lost due to damage. Potions and scrolls can be completely destroyed by any severe damage. Mike says, if you don't want to get poisoned, quit just opening chests and drinking every potion you find. Demi-human relics. Dwarven relic. Elven relics. The Dwarven Forge of Power, the Elven Tree of Life. The Crucible of Black Flame rests at the heart of every clan stronghold. Black Flame is a normal fire. In reverse, it burns ashes and leaves whole items. Oh, well, that's crazy. The Crucible, a truncated pyramid-shaped wooden container, may be used, along with the Black Flame itself, to create fabulous webs of shadows and extremely rare oil of moonlight described later. A crucible may only be left unattended if the entire halfling clan is destroyed. If any non-halfling possesses a crucible, most halfling clans hearing of it will offer to buy the crucible for 10,000 gold pieces or more, or for 100,000 or more if it contains black flame, depending on the clan's resources. They may try to steal it back. Craft use of relics. Doors are common in most dungeons. Many doors are locked and many others are stuck. If locked, a door cannot be opened until a thief unlocks it or until a magic user casts knock upon it. Any unlocked door can be easily opened by any monster. After a door is opened, it will usually slowly swing shut unless a spike is used to wedge the door open or it is held open. Open doors ability. A stuck door can be forced open by any character. If a character says, I'll open the door, roll 1d6. If the result is 5 or 6, the door is forced open. If the roll should be modified by a character's strength score adjustment, but a total of 6 should always open a stuck door. An attempt may be made once per round. However, if the first attempt fails, monsters on the other side of the door cannot be surprised. They have heard the noise. Secret doors. Any character may search for secret doors. The player must describe the exact area being searched. The exact area being searched. This takes about 1 turn for each 10 by 10 area searched. If a player says, my character will look for secret doors, roll d6. You should always roll whether a secret door is there or not to keep the players guessing. If there is a secret door and the result is a 1, the character has found the secret door. Elves may find secret doors on a roll of 1 or 2. To me, there's always the problem with secret doors. It can't be a secret door that you have to find in order to progress the story, because this is also not level dependent. I mean, unlocking a door by a thief, picking a lock, you might not be able to do it this time, but if it's something you've got to get to, well, it said you can level up and try again. You got to go away and level up and try again. But this is just a flat chance of finding secret doors. So you could look and look and look, but this is part of the time situation. Like, how much time have you got? But what happens if this secret door is something that you have to find in order to progress the story? You can't really use it. You can't really adjudicate it in this way. Because otherwise, sort of like searching for traps, people are going to be searching for secret doors like everywhere. And that seems to slow the game down. Special doors. So we get information on the haste spell. There are many magical ways for creatures to move and fight at greater than normal speed. The most common is the haste spell. The following rules apply in such situations. Saving throws are never affected by speed differences. Hit rolls gain +2 bonus for each speed difference. A hasted character who drinks a potion of speed thus gains a total of +4 to all attack rolls against opponents moving at normal speed, but only +2 against a single hasted opponent. +2 bonus for each speed difference. A hasted character who drinks a potion of speed is +4 against non-speed enhanced creatures. An armor class of a hasted creature is not different from its AC at normal speed, but it receives a -2 AC bonus for the next speed effect. Thus, a fighter wearing plate mail and shield is treated as AC 0 if double speeded, such as from both the potion and the spell. Wands, staves, rods, spells, and other magical items are not affected by speed. Magic always takes standard time to use without bonuses or penalties for speed effects. James says, true to form, it literally has rules for doors and opening them. Zero Theory says, yeah, it's often just treasure or a bonus behind a secret door. If the plot is behind the door, well, the DM had better come up with a better idea. Let's see. A maximum of 2 different types of speed can be cumulative. Identical types of speed are not cumulative. Speed can be an extremely valuable tool for characters in combat. Okay, listening. We got a roll to listen for noises. Any character may listen for noises. This occurs most often at doors, but may occur anywhere. For a character to attempt listening, the area must be quiet to result in any success. Near a waterfall, for example, listening is nearly impossible. If the area is quiet, all of the characters must be quiet for it to have any success. This means that anyone must stop and wait while one or more characters listen, because armor, weapons, and other items make noise while the characters are moving. If the player says, I'll listen for noises, roll 1d6. You, the DM, should always roll whether or not there's anything to hear to keep the players guessing. If the result is a 1, 1 or 2 for dwarf, elf, or halfling, the character will hear any noise being made if conditions permit success. A first or second level thief has the same chances to hear noise as a demi-human, but as he gains more level, the thief becomes more adept at hearing noises. Let's see. When a player starts magic, this is magic user spell choice. The first spell given should always be read magic. This allows the character to read scrolls found and would be a basic part of the character's training. The second spell given to a beginning magic user should be fairly powerful. You should avoid giving detect magic, light, or protection from evil as the second spell, as these spells are nearly the same as the clerical versions, easily acquired by a second level or higher cleric. For magic user characters, good second spells are charm person, magic missile, sleep, a useful attack type spell, and shield, valuable protection. The floating disc, hold portal, read languages, and ventriloquism spells are useful. However, the player of a beginning magic user may feel useless if miscellaneous spells, which includes read magic, are only the ones that he knows. These spells make good third spells when the character reaches second level. If a magic user or elf character loses a spell book, the characters have a big problem. Nobody would allow the character to use a borrowed book, and without a book, the character has no spells to memorize. You should always offer some method of the character to find a lost book or gain a new one. This should not be easy. It may involve paying a large sum of money or an unbreakable promise to pay in the future, a special service or journey, dangerous adventure, or some other method. Remember, the character is heavily penalized by the loss of the book, so the player will probably not have much fun until it's recovered. Okay, mapping. So mapping a dungeon is one of the biggest problems for beginning players. You can make it easier by following some simple guidelines, because this is expecting that the players are going to have to be mapping this dungeon. Don't tell me what spells to give who book, James says. Here is a meta level illustration. People playing, and I always thought that was weird to have illustrations of people playing Dungeons and Dragons in the Dungeons and Dragons book, especially when all of the art, other than that, is actually just is like in universe style art. There was like one of those, and I think is there one of those in 5th edition? I think there was one of those in 3rd edition. I always thought it was weird. Kind of takes me out of it. Necromancy for Kids says, make it difficult. The players won't have much fun until it's recovered. LOL. Yeah, I know. This is going to be a very difficult thing for you to do. And you're not going to be having fun while you do it. And good morning, Necromancy for Kids. Good to have you. Zero Theory says, this spell book is probably the most hand-waved thing. Ha. How many times have parties traveled through water or been hit by fireballs, etc., to have their books be just fine? Yeah, I would say a lot. And all their spell components be fine. That is funny. That this should not be easy. Make this difficult. But that they remember they're heavily penalized, will probably not be having much fun. Okay, so to make mapping easier, describe areas clearly and accurately. If you make a mistake, tell the players right away and make necessary corrections. Use the same terms and descriptions and try to describe room details, size of the room, exits, creatures, and other contents in the same order each time. If the players become familiar with certain often used terms, they can map more easily. Some common terms for corridors are side passage or side road. A corridor branches off to one side, but the main corridor continues. Four-way intersection. Corridors branch off in both sides of the main corridor. T intersection. The main corridor ends at an intersection where corridors continue left and right. If a standard description at the start of the adventure for corridors, rooms, walls, set a standard description at the start of the adventure for corridor, rooms, walls, and other typical features. For instance, if you start by saying a standard corridor is 10 feet wide and 10 feet high, you can simply say standard corridor instead of describing it each time. Standard walls might be made of stone blocks, each 2 feet long and 1 foot tall, mortared on all sides. And no further wall description is needed unless something differs from the standards. James says, yeah, we just hand-waved some wards or general magic protections for spell books. Yeah, it's waterproof for sure. Necromancy for Kids says, similar thing happens in later editions with familiars. Everyone wants invincible familiars. Yeah, you kill a familiar or an animal companion or something like that. Players do not take that lightly. When you design your own dungeon, use straight corridors and square rooms at first. You may try other shapes and twisted corridors once the players have more experience, but even then it will slow down the game. Okay, so here's multiple characters. You should not allow beginning characters to play more than one character at the same time. It can be hard enough to play the role of one character. 2 or more can be confusing. However, when the characters are more experienced, you may consider this an optional system. You might run several different campaigns in your fantasy world. If so, you may allow each player to have a character in each campaign. This can be more interesting and allows the players to try different classes. Overusing dice. New dungeon masters often make the common mistake of using random dice to determine everything. The entire evening can be spoiled if, for instance, an unplanned wilderness encounter on the way to the dungeon goes badly for the party. The DM must use good judgment in addition to random tables. Encounters should be scaled to the strength of the party and should be in harmony with the theme of the adventure whenever possible. They should be worked into the story the characters are playing out. Likewise, the DM may choose, instead of rolling for amount of damage, number appearing, etc. Likewise, the DM may choose numbers instead of rolling for damage, number appearing, etc. This may be necessary to allow for a more enjoyable game. Heavy damage early in the game may spoil the fun. I wasn't expecting it to say that. Now, number appearing, sure, but I wasn't expecting it to say that the DM should just choose the number of damage at times. DMs who do that, talking about killing pets and animal familiars are literally the devil. How dare leave my familiar out of this? What is reality shifts? A DM may occasionally decide to change a procedure that has been used in many previous games. Rule changes and additions can usually be introduced by some logical means, such as finding a new spell in a long-forgotten scroll, or a magic weapon could be stolen by NPC thieves to remove it from play. However, change cannot be logically explained. Sometimes a change cannot be logically explained. For a broad and basic rules changes, work with your players to develop a logical explanation. If no other method presents itself, a reality shift may be the only option. A reality shift means the DM and the players have decided they want to play the game by different rules. Do not try to replay past events or adventures that may have hinged on the changed rule. Either consider the results of such encounters, modifying treasure, XP, and gains thereby, or just ignore the past completely. Avoid reality shifts when possible, applying the change by intervening logical reasons for their existence. Now we have record keeping. Yeah, see, fudging it is written into the book. It is right there. Necromancy for Kids says, so 5e technically has flat damage in the system, but I've never seen anyone use it. Yeah, isn't there... Oh, no, hit point. Okay, flat damage is in the system. I don't remember that. I know that, like, when you're rolling for hit points, you'll have, here's your hit die, but then here's just a number. Okay. I'm expecting lots of record keeping here. So a dungeon master must often keep track of large amounts of information. The following guidelines are provided as suggestions on how to turn a disorganized mess into a neat, well-run campaign. Timekeeping, so important. A DM can keep a firm grip on game events if always aware of the exact game time. Here we have the word again, the exact game time. Many effects have given durations. All actions take time. When PCs stroll about dungeon corridors, NPCs and monsters may be busily engaged in their own affairs, some of which may affect the party at some point. But when? Good records of actions help keep organized timekeeping. During a very active encounter, keep track of time can eliminate confusion and help you keep track of durations effectively, monsters and other foes who can enter and leave combat. Make a time track, a simple list of numbers, and mark off each time as it passes. Rounds, turns, hours, and days can thus be accounted for. The timekeeping note sheet can be discarded after the adventure is over, but the DM may wish to make permanent notes of the dates and places of unusual and disastrous events, encounters, and other details. So this is the time track table. Days in a month, we have 28. We have 24 hours a day. We have turns in an hour, 6. And we have rounds in a turn, 60. Character records. If the DM keeps his own file of information about player characters, he can find important details about them quickly, even during games. He can either keep a full copy of the character sheets or put compressed data on an index card. The player isn't allowed to keep back any information about his character. The player must, at all times, divulge any details about his character to the DM. At a minimum, the DM will need the following information about each PC: the character's name, armor class, hit points, alignment, class and level, experience points, ability scores, THACO, saving throws, weapons, temporary magical items, permanent magic items, and the player's name. The DM may also want to know special details such as XP, gear, cash totals, thief abilities, magic user, books, dominion details, and income, locations in the game world, items and information sought, etc. And we saw record tables back there, as well as NPC data, obviously. Okay, here's the adventure record sheet. So here's specifically talking about that. Yeah, I know. Where is Sable Phoenix? This is perfect. Oh, Necromancy for Kids. That says next to all of the attacks for monsters, it says how much damage the attack does on average, and says the DM can choose to use the average damage instead of rolling. Okay, so it's got that for hit points and damage. Micah says, I've used flat damage plus or minus 1d4 up to plus or minus 1d20, sometimes because the players have tended to prefer not to have flat damage used against them. Zero Theory says, I had a whole session retconned and turned into it was only a dream by the GM in a game of Werewolf. We messed it up that bad. So how are we using this adventure record sheet? To help the GM organize an adventure and run it swiftly, he may wish to prepare an adventure record sheet. Take a sheet of paper and at the top left corner, write the real date and the date of the adventure and campaign time. Note the character's mission or primary activity for the day's adventure at the top right hand of the paper. Using the copies of the record sheet you have for all PCs and NPCs taking part in the current, use the copies of the record sheet you have for all PCs and NPCs taking part in the current adventure. Copy the information you most need during the game, including each character's name, class, and level. On Appendix 3, you'll find a full-size copy of this adventure record sheet. You can photocopy it and use one record sheet for each adventure you play. Note all the abbreviations on the record sheets are explained below. So NA is actually number appearing. Okay. Whenever magic affects a character, note the nature of the effect and its duration to the right of the character information. Use abbreviations whenever possible to save space. As the game time passes, deduct from all magical effect durations. When a character would be aware of the exact duration, warn the player only when only a brief time remains. An alternative method to keep track of duration is to mark the time track the exact game time when the effect disappears. When that much time has passed, mark it off. Placement during encounters. If the DM keeps track of monsters and PCs' locations by memory alone, he may sometimes make errors, and we would hate to have that happen. Let's see. Miniature figures and other items to represent the opponents are useful for visualizations and are best used on gridded playing surfaces to indicate distances. A surface can be further marked to indicate walls, furniture, etc. is ideal. If miniature figures are not available, try making abstract play aids to represent monsters. They can be as simple as scraps of paper with numbers on them, dice, or pieces of round wooden dowel, each about an inch high and marked with color and a number. With only 4 colors and single-digit numbers, an accurate account can be kept of up to 36 monsters. Players can identify their opponents by number and color. I hit Red Spectre number 7 for 12 points. Another alternative is to chalk and inexpensively use chalkboard to make diagrams. Retiring characters. For a variety of reasons, a player or DM may decide that a character should be retired. A player may lose interest in a character. The DM might make the character an NPC and have him reappear in later adventures. That character may still rise in levels, but is a lesser rate that have experienced progress. Discarded characters who are fully developed in the past are ideal for a new player who wants to play established characters in the game. Oh, so just let somebody else come in and take that. That lets somebody get into a higher level character faster. Zero, there's this. I hit Red Spectre number 7 for 12 points. That sounds immersive. The DM may also decide that a character is no longer suitable for a particular campaign due to excess of money, items, or power, or some other reason. Before retiring the character, the DM should discuss the problem with the player and try to find alternatives. Remember that a properly played but too powerful character may be suitable for another DM's campaign. Whenever the character is retired from play, provide the other character with logical reasons for the disappearance. The adventurer might move away to another continent or region, die of natural causes or old age, mysteriously disappear, or just retire from the adventuring life. Special character conditions. So we've got characters can be blinded in a variety. So we've got blindness, and the old characters can be blinded by a variety of effects. For example, light or continual light may be cast directly on the character's eyes, or a character without infravision may find himself in an area of complete darkness. So we've got rules for blindness. This is kind of early conditions, and we know I like conditions. Deafness, invisibility, paralysis, prone, sleep and unconsciousness, starvation and dehydration. A character begins to starve after one full day without food. For every full day a character goes without either food or water, roll one die of the specified type below. The result is the number of hit points he loses. While starving, the character cannot heal naturally, and healing spells do not restore hit points lost from starvation until the character is no longer starving. As a character loses hit points, he gradually becomes less and less effective, as the starvation table below shows. To use the table, find out what percentage of the character's hit points he has lost due to starvation. Divide the character's unmodified hit point total into the number of hit points lost due to starvation. For example, a fighter with 32 hit points who has lost 10 hit points due to starvation has lost about 31% of his character hit points to starvation. Compare that total to the table. You can also use this table to determine the effects of starvation on monsters. So where's our starvation table? Starvation table. Character has no food, no water, no food and water. Hit point loss. Oh, no food is D2 per day. No water is D8 per day. No food and no water is D10 hit points per day. Then your hit points that you have, percentage of HP lost due to starvation, 0 to 24%. You must rest 6 hours per day, no penalty to movement rate, and no penalty to attack rolls. But once you've lost over 50% to 74%, must rest 10 hours per day. Movement rate is at 1/2, and penalty to attack rolls is -4. We have stunned characters as well. Actually, doesn't that list right there seem very much like the list from 5th edition? That seems very much like a 5th edition list. Let me see here. I'm curious. So is that actually something that, like, the conditions, did 5th edition kind of return to that? That would be on the... Oh, I forget. I moved my 5th edition stuff. That's on the DM's guide, or DM's screen, that we really didn't like. So 5th edition has blinded. Okay, charmed, because we talked about charmed elsewhere. Deafened. Yeah. Oh, we don't have frightened here. Grappled, incapacitated. So we actually do have more. Invisibility, check. Paralyzed, yes. So some of these have been with us for a long time. Now, I'm sure like frightened spells or monster's ability but frightening tells you that. Invisible, paralyzed. Yeah, we said that one. Petrified. Petrified's new here. Poisoned. Don't specifically have that. Prone. We do have prone characters right here. Stunned. Yeah, we got that. Sleep and unconsciousness. We got that. So, okay. So those conditions have actually been, some of these conditions have actually been with us for a while. LOL. What is new? What was old is new again. Yeah. It's fun seeing what comes back. So it's not exactly the same list, but but those have been around for a while. And I guess it does make sense to add things like frightened back to it. We've got more stuff with thief ability. What is this? Transferring characters. A player may come to your game with a character created somewhere else. If this occurs, examine the character sheet carefully. In general, you may allow the character to transfer into your game unless the character is of higher level than other characters in your game, the character owns more or better magical items, or are owned by other characters. The character's treasure amounts are more than 50% greater than the amount owned by any other character in the game. Any one of these problems may be corrected simply by changing the details in the character sheet, but if allowed to remain unchanged, one of them can unbalance the encounter you have set up. If changes are necessary, you should talk about them with the player in private before the game. When an inexperienced character comes into your campaign, you may want to establish how he came there. If the character's former campaign is set in a world very similar to your campaign world, You can pretend that he has had previous adventures in this world all along and describe to the other PCs what they've heard about the character. Okay. All right, so that was that DM section. I want to go to the campaign section. I guess a couple of surprises in there but this down here, which seem to kind of go together. Campaigning right here. Zero the Blade says, which version of the DM screen? Oh, I looked at was the original one for 5th edition. Like, I got this one whenever 5th edition was just starting to come out. I don't think it's a very great one. Let's see. I compared it. I compared it to one of the other 5th edition screens. There's a YouTube video where I do a whole bunch of GM screen comparisons, or a series of YouTube videos where I compare a whole bunch of GM screens. I looked at a couple of them from 5th edition. So we've got campaigning here. What do we say about this? A D&D campaign is an organized framework for you, the Dungeon Master, created to provide a realistic setting for the series of fantastic adventures. Campaign tone and goals. A campaign tone is the flavor of the campaign. It's an intangible element which gives the DM and players an understanding of things in the campaign and of what they can expect from their efforts. Excuse me. Campaign goals. The campaign goal is one of the most important aspects of your D&D games. Goals give the player and the DM something to strive for and to provide a sense of reward and accomplishment. A campaign goal is a very broad purpose, usually involving the fate of a nation or an entire world, and ties together the adventures and happenings in the campaign. This goal creates the major struggles of the world, like to bring peace to the world, or to defeat the evil wizard who controls the sorceress underground all across the continent. Player character goals. A player character might desire to achieve a personal power to find and keep friends, to collect magical items, to find his or her ideal mate, to clear the stain of dishonor from a family name, etc. Designing the setting. The historical setting upon which most D&D campaigns are based on is 15th century Europe. All right, well, that's interesting that it says that. So 15th century Europe is what we're talking about here. But a fantasy Europe where the printing press and gunpowder, so a D&D game campaign are based on 15th century Europe, but a fantasy Europe where the printing press and gunpowder were never invented. The majority of adventures and supplements released by TSR take place in worlds like this. And so if you plan to utilize these resources to your fullest degree of usefulness, you want to create a similar setting. 14th century Europe, but no printing press or gunpowder. But magic. Designing a campaign map. So decide on terrain, draw maps of the area, place the hometown and local dungeons, locate areas under human control, locate areas under non-human control, describe the hometown, fill in other details, create layers and encounter tables. Draw maps. Describe the hometown. Towns and cities. This is like a small world builder's guide. So it's interesting this having you do this. Now I think it's got the worlds inside. It's like Mystara is in the appendix here, but it's trying to tell you what to do if you want to make full use of the existing campaign modules. Important NPCs, the government. Designing adventures and dungeons. Designing dungeons. Is there something here that you think I should specifically take a look at? Running adventures, the campaign group. Normally, a group gets together to play the game. One player acts as the dungeon master who takes the tasks on creating the world and running the adventures. The other members of the group are players. Part of what we'll be talking about involves ways for the DM and players to get along and cooperate when playing the game. Some of what we'll talk about involves ways for the players to work with one another. Pre-game checklist on Dungeon Master setup. Do all the players know how to play? 2. Have you read this book all the way to the end? Are there any rules you're not familiar with? Do you and your players know why the characters are embarking on this new adventure? Are the characters ready to go and equipped for the adventure? Have the players chosen a caller and a mapper? Now, okay, it's stuff like that I was looking for. So mapper, we know the PCs are supposed to be mapping, but I had heard somebody else talk about this role of the caller. Do they have a piece of graph paper and a pencil to map with? If the answer is no, stop to fix the problem. So if you have not read all this book all the way to the end, stop and fix the problem. The most important rule. There is one rule which applies to everything you do as a dungeon master. It must be the most important of all rules. That is, be fair. A dungeon master must not take sides. A DM who likes his monsters and NPCs better than he likes the PCs and maliciously sets out to abuse the PCs at every opportunity is not a good DM. As DM, you will play the role of creatures encountered, but you should do so fairly, without favoring the monsters and the characters. Play the monsters as if they would really behave, at least as you imagine them. The players are not fighting or competing with the DM. Uh-oh, James. The players are not fighting or competing with the DM. The characters may be fighting monsters, but everyone is playing the game to have fun. The players have fun exploring and earning more powerful characters, and the DM has fun playing monsters and entertaining players. So the Dungeon Master's job. The D&D game is basically a series of encounters with other actions such as movement and problem solving between them. The dice are often used to find results when choices must be made. All the dice rolls are called game mechanics. The game consists mostly of role-playing game mechanics and strategy. During an encounter, the players make the attack rolls, damage rolls, and saving throws for their characters. You, the Dungeon Master, make similar rolls for the monsters, plus rolls to find traps, to find the monster's actions. Let's see. The DM's roles. Remember, although the monsters may be fighting the characters, you are not fighting the players. You try to entertain them. They will entertain you. Play the roles of monsters, but forget them when they are slain. Their only purpose in the long run is to provide entertainment. Reaction roles. Running the game. During most of a D&D game, the Dungeon Master leaves the decisions to the players. The DM presents the setting, describes what the characters see, offers choices of settings, and so forth. But the course of the game is determined by the actions of the party as decided by all the players. The DM can almost relax and enjoy the character's progress as they explore, make maps, solve puzzles, and so forth. I want to know more about the role of the caller. Let's see. We tried to play D&D, but we did not have a caller. Zero Theory. We had to stop and correct that immediately. That chart is taken verbatim from the DM's guide over at stop right here, which is a lot shorter than the rules encyclopedia. Okay, so that makes more sense if it had come from someplace else, because this rules encyclopedia. I have the printout of it. Oh, I had it sitting around here someplace. Oh, right here. Yes, because this is the book it was telling you. Please make sure that you have read this entire book from cover to cover. So something smaller, like when you're talking about, like, especially like the intro to D&D guide or something like that. Right. The caller is the person designated to relay the party's action to the GM, which is something that we don't do a whole lot. If I could find exactly how they describe that, maybe it's under like the player's responsibilities or something like that. Because everybody is not supposed to be talking to the game master, which is different than we typically play today. Okay, then we get to planes of existence. Let's see if we can find some information on the caller. There might be a section on players. Let's see. Because that was the first time that word had come up. See, monsters, immortals, treasure. Can I just search this for caller? Oh, here is mapping and calling. Okay, this is actually very early on, and we might have skipped over this very early on. So mapping and calling. Although each person will be playing the role of a character, the player should also handle the jobs of mapping and calling. Any player can be the mapper or the caller. The mapper is the player who draws the map of the dungeon as it's explored. One or more of the characters should be making maps, but one or more of the players should be making maps, but one of the players must make the actual map. The map should be kept on the table for all to see and to refer to. Pencil should be used when making the map in case of errors or tricky passages. If the party's movement carries it into a new unmapped territory, the DM will describe the area in detail so the party's mapper can map it. If something such as a secret door or treasure item is discovered, the DM describes it and announces the result to as if the characters examine it. The caller is a player selected by other players to describe party actions so the DM doesn't have to listen to several voices at once. He or she tells the DM what the party is doing this turn. If the DM prefers, each individual player can describe his own actions. The caller is just a convenience in many campaigns. It's not a game rule that players have to use. So when the players are squabbling or arguing among themselves about what they are doing and stuff like that, the caller is supposed to organize that and then refer that to the DM. So this right here, chosen a caller and a mapper. Game turn checklist. Wandering monsters. If the wandering monsters check at the end of the previous turn was positive, the monsters arrive now. Under normal dungeon conditions, they appear 2d6 times 10 feet away in the direction of the DM's choice. Leave the game turn checklist sequence and go to the encounter checklist below. See handling wandering monsters. 2. Actions. The caller or each player describes party actions, movement, listening, searching, etc. Then describe the results. So encounter checklist, both sides make appropriate rolls, the caller for the PCs and the DM for the monsters. Any side that rolls a 1 or a 2 is surprised. So like the caller is making so maybe the caller then also makes some of the group checks. If the group has to make a group check, like rolling for surprise or something, that's done by the caller. So there isn't a whole lot of information on the caller here, but that is it. Mark says the caller is more like the lead player. I do not use that term, but some players are better organized than others, and I depend on them. William says that basic D&D was intended for large groups, so the intention of the caller was to prevent the DM from getting confused. Oh, I guess I could have looked in the index. I just did a search. But yeah, so yeah, especially if you're playing one of these games with a lot more players, then having some of the players organized seems would probably be useful. Because if you're only playing with 3 or 4 PCs, maybe it's not necessary. But if you're playing with 8 or 9, then yeah. Oh, index to spells. Index to tables and checklists. General index. Calling, page 5. I think that must have been this. Yep, that's page 5. Okay. Well, okay. Well, I think that rather than going on to Immortals, like how long is Immortals? Because there's the last two that we covered 3 of the topics or 3 of the chapters we were interested in here, but we do want to take a look at Immortals. I want to take a look at our stuff on medieval titles. But how long is Immortals? So Immortals. Okay, there's quite a bit here on Immortals. I'm curious about that. So Immortal Play, Becoming Immortal. Okay, so that will be tomorrow's topic. We'll go on to Immortals tomorrow. But I just wanted to make a note of something that we're talking about here. Yeah, Mark says, yeah, I have 8 players in my Mystara campaign. Let me stop screen sharing. So I was looking at different examples of monarchs who hold other titles other than different types of kings. But so I found a couple of examples. So our example yesterday was, okay, King Charles III, and we had 3 different dukedoms. We have Lancaster, we have Cornwall, and we have Normandy. And the situation here was that these 3 different dukedoms are instructive in that both Lancaster and Cornwall are within the peerage of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, right? And so we said that the monarch governs Lancaster directly, the Duchy of Lancaster directly, but is not the Duke of Lancaster, because the Duke of Lancaster, that title has merged with the crown. And I was saying that I think it's because because it does not make sense for the king to be his own vassal. In the case of the Duchy of Cornwall, the Duke of Cornwall runs that. And the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles was the Duke of Cornwall, but the Duke of Cornwall became Prince William as soon as he became the Prince of Wales. King Charles then gave William the Duchy of Cornwall and became the Duke of Cornwall. So the king isn't the Duke of Cornwall there. He sent that to another vassal. But then King Charles III will be the Duke of Normandy. But how can he be the Duke of Normandy? Because the Duke of Normandy is not something that is in the peerage of the UK and of the UK, because it's part of the peerage of France, right? And so he governs the Channel Islands as the Duke of Normandy, because William the Conqueror was the Duke of Normandy, and he came over and he conquered the UK, or excuse me, conquered England. And so that set up a strange situation where the King of England was a vassal of the King of France, which had a lot of consequences for several hundred years after that. So it's certainly possible for a king to be a duke. But what I was trying to say was, I don't think it's possible for him to be his own vassal. I think that we're going to be hard pressed. It doesn't mean it's not out there, but we're going to be hard pressed for the king to be his own vassal. And I was thinking about that in terms of Richard the Lionheart, but I was thinking about that in terms of Charles III's coronation. I was listening to something about Charles III's coronation. And of course, part of the coronation is that all of the peers have to pay homage to him. And actually, they're shortcutting that a little bit here. I was reading in his coronation ceremony, because he's not going to take homage from all of the peers of the realm at the coronation in an attempt to make it a little bit shorter. Apparently, when Elizabeth was coronated, all of the peers of the realm did come up and pay homage to the Queen. But in this case, they're just going to have the new Prince of Wales, William, come up and pay homage to the king on behalf of all the peers in the realm. That seems kind of strange to me. But it's the way they're doing it, because homage, and this whole thing is based on such personal relationships. It seems kind of strange to me that that would be accepted. But I think it's kind of weird, but hey, it's the way they're doing it. I mean, I guess you could say, to me, paying homage is something that has to be done publicly anyway. So you could say, okay, we got this public ceremony here, and I'm just going to have the Prince of Wales pay me homage here, but then all of the other peers have to come and pay homage like later at the palace that night or something like that. William says they are going to ask us to swear an oath at home. Interesting. But see, the point was about the king not being his own vassal is if the king were also one of the peers, then at that point in the coronation, he would be expected to do himself homage. And that doesn't make sense. See, that's the part that doesn't make sense. You'd want to be sure, like, oh, yeah, the king is also the duke. But no, wait a minute. If they all have to come and swear homage to the king, then that means at some point the king would have to do homage to himself. And my point was that I think that that's a situation that we are unlikely to find in feudal arrangements. That there wouldn't be a situation, because there wouldn't be a situation where you're expected to swear an oath to yourself. Now, I've got two examples here of monarchs that do have all kinds of ducal titles. Let's see here. But I'm still, let's see. Let's start with Richard here. At least according to Wikipedia. So Richard I was the King of England. This is Richard the Lionhearted from 1189 until his death in 1199. He also ruled as the Duke of Normandy, Aquitaine, Gascony, Lord of Cyprus, Count of Poitiers, Anjou, Maine, Nantes, and was overlord of Brittany at various times during the same period. So here, but see, looks like the same. He's the Duke of Normandy, of course, but Aquitaine, Gascony, that has to do with the hierarchy and title, the nobility of France, right? As well as down here in Poitiers, Anjou, Maine, Nantes. So this is a bunch of stuff that's in France. And so even here, I don't think we're ever going to have a situation where he is his own vassal. So here we do have the situation where you have a king who is also all kinds of different dukes and things like that. But I believe that's definitely outside of his own peerage. Some of this information is very difficult to find. I used to look for a lot of this information when I was doing my graduate school, and I was looking at the creation of states and things like that. And this became really important. But a lot of it's very difficult to find, and it's related oftentimes to noble titles like this. But it's very difficult to find. First of all, we tend to be very English-centric around here because most of the information would be, I speak English. I'm here in the United States. So most of us who are English speakers, and we were trying to find out information on exactly how noble titles and peerages of other countries work, well, basing things off of the UK is pretty natural because that information is already in English. You can find a fair amount about France, but when you start getting into other languages and other places, especially in Eastern Europe, there's a language barrier. And most of the time, if you're looking for really detailed and accurate information about how certain titles or something like that is passed down, a lot of history books just don't include that anyway. I mean, you've really got to get into, it deals with such things on a much more superficial level. I mean, Wikipedia often deals with these things on a superficial level. So you can't really get the information that you're looking for. Like if I were really trying to figure out like who is paying homage to who and who is in what kind of feudal relationship with who, that's often very difficult to find. The Habsburgs were famously inbred. That's where the chin comes from. Let's see. We're talking about. Right. So see, that's the Habsburgs are where I was about to go next. The Habsburg were the king of Bohemia was an elector of the Holy Roman Empire, and so if you were king of Bohemia, you could vote for yourself as Holy Roman Emperor. And I think that yes, becomes the Holy Roman Empire is more is German centric as well, because the Austrian Empire. One thing we can do later is I was very interested in tracking different imperial lineages, like when somebody decides to become an emperor, that matters, especially to other people, because there was only one emperor for a long time, or two, even after the division of the Roman Empire. But yeah, over here now, where was I looking over here? So the Emperor of Austria, and I was like, now how did the Hungarian Empire, or how did Austria-Hungary get its own emperor? And I didn't know that. I looked that up. The Emperor of Austria, and later the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was proclaimed in 1804 by the Holy Roman Emperor Francis II. So basically the situation was he knew the Holy Roman Empire was doomed because Napoleon was rampaging through it, but he wanted to maintain his imperial dignity for himself and his family. And so he created the position of Emperor of Austria. So even when the Holy Roman Empire was going to be inevitably dissolved by Napoleon, he would be able to maintain, he and his family would maintain imperial dignity by having the Empire of Austria. And this is a situation. Why does he have things like the emperors retain the title of Archduke of Austria? But the Archduke of Austria, that is a monarchical title. Once you get to archdukes, archduchies, grand princes, those are monarchical titles. And that gets into why different states had different ranks themselves. Because even though you had different monarchs, those monarchs might not be the same rank. It wasn't until much later that we have this idea of the sovereign equality of all of our states. I'm using the term state in here as basically country. I mean, we can get into the technical differences there, and I do because I was part of my graduate school. But, talking about states as different countries, the equality of all of them. The equality of all of them was not something we always had because some of them were ruled by kings, some of them were ruled by grand princes, some of them were ruled by grand dukes, and that mattered in terms of their relationship with one another. But he had a, where did I, man? Founder of the Emperor of Austria. Maybe this is the, so the titles of the emperor. So right here, he's also one that has a bunch. But still, I would still point out that this does not mean that it's operating the way that Rules Cyclopedia said that your titles are cumulative. I still think that was really crazy. That's what set off this investigation anyway. Saying that your titles are cumulative is not something that happens. Like if the king decides to make you a duke, does that mean you are also an earl and also a marquis? No, it does not. If the king wanted you to be those things, he would have made you those things. Just because you become a duke doesn't mean that you're cumulatively everything else below you as well. That's not the way that works. Nonetheless, okay, the full list after the loss of Lombardy in 1859 and Venetia in 1866, Emperor of Austria, Apostolic King of Hungary, King of Bohemia, Dalmatia, Croatia, Slovenia, Galicia, Lombardia, and of Illyria, King of Jerusalem. See, that doesn't it doesn't bother me at all that you would have an emperor who is also the king of a bunch of different kingdoms, because you can certainly have a bunch of different kingdoms in personal union, because it can just so happen that for different reasons, the same person, the same human being can be the king of multiple things, especially since we're also talking about Archduke and Grand Duke being different monarchical titles. Archduke of Austria, Grand Duke of Tuscany, and Krakow. In fact, being king of all of these things is kind of what unifies this into an empire in a certain sense. But then we Grand Prince of Transylvania, Duke. So we do have ducal titles here: Duke of Lorraine, Salzburg, Styria, Carinthia, Carinolia, and Bukovina. But a lot of this, I think, is part of the Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Empire had a tremendous amount of autonomy for a lot of its constituent parts. And so if you were a duke, they had this term imperial immediacy, right? And imperial immediacy meant that your only overlord was directly the emperor. And that meant that you had a tremendous amount of autonomy and were even quasi-sovereign, basically, or to a large extent in de facto sovereign yourself, although you had the emperor as your immediate overlord. So it wouldn't also surprise me, after the Habsburgs are consolidating a lot of power here, that they are accumulating a bunch of different dukedoms as well that are basically quasi-sovereign. It's near sovereign or quasi-sovereign. There's a lot that could be said about that. But I think that's what's happening here. I bet that if we were actually able to have good information on all of this and get down to it, which is often not what Wikipedia has, would have to get down to it. I still bet that you would never find a situation in all of this where the Emperor of Austria was his own vassal, despite having all of this. Because I bet he's not holding a fief from himself. He's not his own vassal, I believe. That's my hypothesis, that even in all of that, we would never find that. The classic idea of the knight is usually either a chevalier or a Teuton, not British. I looked up King of Jerusalem. So it was looking up because I also went, oh, that's interesting, holding on to the King of Jerusalem right here. So it did say that no emperor of Austria was actually ever sovereign over Jerusalem, but that there were several. But after the fall of Jerusalem, after was it an Egyptian army? Once it was an Egyptian army that had taken Jerusalem back, and so the kingdom of Jerusalem had fallen. There were several different people who claimed to hold the throne of Jerusalem. So that one is theoretical, right? There were several different people who made their argument that they were now the king of Jerusalem after the king of Jerusalem had fallen. Although it seems like, no one ever went back on crusade to try to get that back. But that's why. So there was some. So I would like to read that. Like, if there is, like, that's the kind of thing that I would like to find out about. Like, what exactly was the formal or legal argument, if there was one? But generally there is. Some people say, well, you're sticking these things. You can make this claim, and maybe you do just make this claim. But there's generally some reason as to why they're making the claim. I'd really be interested to know exactly what kind of legal or formal reasoning was there to make that person the King of Jerusalem. English peers usually have a subsidiary title which are held by their eldest son. So the Duke of Norfolk's eldest son is the Earl of Arundel. And you can also do this thing called acceleration, right? So that because in the British peerage, you don't ennoble families, you just ennoble individuals. And so if the court or the House of Lords needs you, right, and you have a subsidiary title, if you're the Duke of Norfolk and the Earl of Arundel, then the king can accelerate the eldest son and give the lesser title to the eldest son. Yeah. Daniel says, kinda, you have the rights to all titles that rank below yours and the right to grant titles of all ranks below you. It was common in practice to give your children title one rank below you but that still doesn't have anything to do with making yourself your own vassal. You have the rights to all titles that rank below yours. I don't know about that. And there's no actual difference between you and how you're treated or what you're supposed to do as your highest rank takes preference. Yeah, William says the English king continued to style themselves as king of France until about 1800s. That seems rather late, but all right. So anyway, that was just a continuation from yesterday's conversation. I am still thinking that you're not going to be your own vassal. All right. Well, I'm out of here. There are things to do. Everybody go be creative, be productive, be creative. I'm going to try to. Man, I feel like I have been absolutely horrifically unproductive for like the past month. I think all of April seems to be like all of April seems to have been lost as far as productivity goes. So let's try to be productive. Let's try to be creative. And until the morning, grind on.